Okay. So, now when we come to the biological evolution, there are major two theories based upon this. One is obviously the natural selection, which is related with the Darwinism, and the other one is the Lamarckism. Okay, so there are two theories which is going to prove the biological evolution. Okay, so first let's see about the Lamarckism. That is the theory of evolution, which is based upon the inheritance of acquired characters. Right. So obviously we know what do you mean by inheritance of acquired characters, right? So acquired characters means what? It is actually a character which is developed by the use as well as what disuse of the organs, right? Use and disuse of the organs. For example, they have used over here is of the giraffe. Okay, so giraffes usually they have what? Long neck. Now what is the reason for the long neck is to take the leaves as food which are present on the taller trees. So for that sake their neck has been developed into this much length. Okay, so this is what, in order to adapt to that environment and survive, as I told you, survival of the fittest, right? So for that purpose only, they acquired the character that is the long neck of the giraffe, right? So hence, it seems that whatever giraffe's long neck which is there, it has been developed in a course of year, depending upon how tall they have to reach to get their food, that is in the form of leaves, right? So as I told you, two things are there. One is use or either the disuse. So when you come to the use of the organs, one is the long neck, as I told you. And when you come to the disuse of the organs, maybe, yeah, you can take the example of limbs of snake. So nowadays, if we see, snakes do not have limbs, but usually they say that it has been eliminated because that was not in use for the snake. Okay, because they used to slide and go. So hence, whatever the limb was there, generation by generation, when the genes passed on, it just completely vanished, and there are no limbs present on the snake. So this is an example of what? Disuse of the organ. Okay, so these are what the conditions which you can see in the theory of inheritance of acquired characters, that which is also known as what? Lamarckism, given by Lamarck. Then the second one, okay, the widely given theory, which is nothing but the Darwinism. So Darwinism, already I have told you, it's nothing but based upon the natural selection. So Charles Darwin was the one who gave this theory, right? And this is based mostly upon the two concepts. Okay, one is called as the natural selection, and another one is called as the common descent. Okay, now this common descent is also known as what? The branching descent. Okay, so what is this common descent or the branching descent? So in this, we can see that here you will find all the descendants which were there. Okay, so they will be mostly modified. So from the common ancestors, whatever the modified descendants are there, they will show you the previous forms of life. Previous forms of life. Okay, so common descendant they will be having. Whereas natural selection means what? For example, I told you about the moths, right? The white and the black color, the industrialization process which is there. So depending upon the conditions or the environment they have to adapt to live in, what will happen is the predators. I told you, right? The white color, because the trees branches were covered with the lichens. So hence the white moth was not appeared to the predators, whereas the black one were. So hence they were taken up by the predators. So hence the population of white moth was more. But after the industrial era, what happened was the branch became dark or brown in color. So now it is the opposite, what was before the industrial era. So this is only called as what? Natural selection. So based upon these two concepts, that is the descendant, which is common for the ancestors, as well as the natural selection only, the theories of the biological evolution was given. So actually, the population which is there, that also plays a very important role. Population. Okay, because whatever the natural selection concept is there, it depends upon certain criterias. So I'll just write it over here. So what are those criteria? First one is the heritable minor variation. So whatever variations are there, which are already heritable, means passing from one to the another. So either these variations may be useful to them or they may be what? Harmful. Okay, so this is the first, what do you say, fact based upon the natural selection. Second one, which we can take is regarding the population or overproduction. Overproduction. So if the population size is growing, for example, take like if the population size grows exponentially, so what will happen is the reproduction rate also will be more. So that may also lead to an another criteria for the natural selection. Next you can take is the resources which are available, like the natural resources. Okay, see, now even if the population is increasing, it is not necessary that your resources which you're going to use in the future will also increase. So there it may be a little, what do you say, the resources may not increase, but the population may increase. That may cause a problem during the natural selection again. Fourth one is the existence, that is the struggle for existence. Okay, see, more the population, more the competition, because the resources are less. So obviously the competition rate is going to increase, right? So that way there comes what? The struggle for the existence. So if there is a struggle for the existence, then what will happen is we have to choose the survival of the fittest. So survival of the fittest means what? In this scenario, which I told you, that is for the struggle or for the existence, those organisms which have been undergone certain modifications so that they can exist or adapt to today's environmental condition, those organisms are going to be the fittest and they are going to survive. So hence these people are going to what? Survive as well as reproduce. So in this way, survival of the fittest may lead to a change in what? The population characteristics, and you may get different variations in the organisms for living. Okay, so this is all the facts which are based upon what? The natural selection which is given by Darwinism. Okay, then this was all about the biological evolution and the two theories related to it. Now, the next important part is the mechanism of evolution. Okay, so the mechanism of evolution was given by the Hugo de Vries, and he gave this experiment by working on an evening primrose. Okay, so usually this is related on to your mutation. That is, it's also called as a mutational theory. Mutational theory. Okay, so mutation means you already know that it is nothing but the alteration of one or more genes which leads to an modified characteristic in that particular organism. So he just took the primrose and he conducted the experiment on it, and he believed that this will tell about how the evolution also may take place due to what? The mutation which occurs in that particular organism. So like if I told you as in comparison purpose, like between the Darwinism as well as the mutation. Okay, so how this both differs according to this man. So the first thing is, if you take the Darwinism, there is just minor variation. Okay, but if you take the mutation, the variations will be obviously what? More. Secondly, if we take the direction, how it's going to go, like if the thing is going to take place in a rapid rate or it's going to slow down or whatever. So if you take this thing in case of the Darwinian theory, then what will happen is it will be very slow and directional. Okay, so small and directional. Whereas if you take the mutation, obviously mutations always occur suddenly. So hence a sudden as well as directionless changes may take place over here. And the last one which is there is about the rate of evolution. Okay, so here in Darwin thing, the evolution which is going to take place will be what? Gradually. Okay, so gradually whatever the evolution is that will take place. Whereas in the mutational theory, what will happen is sudden change it is, right? So it will give you a larger impact. So hence that is called as what? The saltation. Okay, saltation means single step, but you get a larger mutation over here. So whatever evolutionary change that you're going to see over here will be what? In more amount as compared to the Darwin's theory. Okay, so this is something which is called as what? Mechanism of evolution. So the next one is what? Hardy-Weinberg's principle. So this is also based upon the mechanism of the evolution, but here it is a little bit different because we are going to see about the alleles. Okay, so how actually the change in frequency of the alleles may have an impact on the evolution. That is what is called as what? Hardy-Weinberg principle. So what is Hardy-Weinberg principle? So it states that the frequencies of occurrence of allele of a particular gene present on a specific locus can be calculated. In short, whatever the frequencies change in an allele, like if you take a population, okay, in that whatever genes are going to change, they will be what? Stable as well as constant when you move from generation to generation. Okay, so this may cause what? An evolutionary impact. Okay, so when you're going from a generation to generation, what may happen is whatever the frequency of occurrence of that allele, which allele means what? A thing which gives you a certain characteristic, right? So when there is a difference in that frequency of occurrence of the allele from generation to generation, then there may be a chance of what? That the your evolution may get influenced due to some reason. Okay, so to justify that, there are certain terms which is called as what? First one is the gene pool. Okay, so what is gene pool? So gene pool means nothing but how many number of alleles sorry, how many number of genes will be present in that population in your allele is called as what? The gene pool, right? So the total genes and their alleles which is present in a population is called as a gene pool. But the thing you have to remember over here is this allele number is going to remain what? Constant. So because it's constant and equilibrium is maintained, hence it's also called as what? Genetic equilibrium. So Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium also is the another thing which you can call for this Hardy-Weinberg's principle. Okay, so you will be having all the total number of allelic frequency which is there, that will be equal to what? Always 1. So this is nothing but the mathematical representation as how this Hardy-Weinberg's principle states, okay, and gives that explanation of your genetic pool. So the first thing is what? Whatever sum of total of all this allelic frequency is what? Already it's written over here, that is it is 1. So if you take an organism, for example, take a diploid one, okay, and take the frequency changes P and Q. Okay, so if you take a diploid organism and if you take the frequencies of that particular allele as P and Q, okay, and the other one as A and capital and small a respectively. So how are you going to get is, now when you do the thing, okay, you will get different forms of allele. For example, the first thing which you will get is capital AA, small a obviously, then capital A and small a. So just directly I'm going to put here, you get the P square, then here will be the Q square, and here because both one capital and one small, so 2PQ. Okay, so here comes the binomial expression. Now this is just, you have to put it as, okay, there is no variation at all. You have to do the binomial expression by using this. Just write it over here. 2PQ plus is equal to 1. Already I have told you whatever the frequency of the alleles is, that's 1. Okay, so this is how you can find out what? The change in the frequency, or you can count the genetic equilibrium according to the Hardy-Weinberg's principle. So they are just going to use, means ask you about the term. Okay, this is not in detail for you. So it's just for your understanding how actually the evolution may take place and how the frequency change in allele may impact the degree of evolution. But obviously, for this also there are certain factors which we have to consider. Okay, and those factors which you have to consider over here is what? Gene migration, genetic drift, mutation, genetic recombination, and natural selection. Okay, now already the gene migration in the term itself it's there. Gene migration means what? Migration or the flow of the gene from one population to the another population so that you will get a new population. That is called as what? Gene migration. Like how we can see the migratory birds, right? The same concept is called as what? Gene migration or gene flow. Second one is called as the genetic drift. Okay, so genetic drift is nothing but accidentally whenever there is a gene flow which may cause the change in the frequency of your allele, then they are called as what? The genetic drift. Okay, so maybe what will happen is entirely different sample of population you may get because it's an accident change in the flow of gene. So hence it's called as what? Genetic drift. Then you have the mutation. So mutation means you already know whatever external appearance also may change due to the alteration of the genes. So either it may lead to a specificity, which is also called as what? Speciation. Okay, then you have is the genetic recombination. So recombination means what? Here usually there will be a reshuffling of your gene. Okay, so whatever genetic flow or genetic combinations are there, they are going to just reshuffle, and then because of that there will be a recombination. So what do you mean by recombination? It's nothing but the crossing over. So when there is a crossing over, what will happen? Obviously, again, it is going to lead into a genetic variation. So that's called as a genetic recombination. Whenever there is a reshuffling, it's like how you shuffle the cards. At that time, what you get, you don't know, right? So it's entirely a different genetic variation. So hence it's called as what? Genetic recombination. And natural selection, I have already told you it's related to the Darwinism. But obviously, in the natural selection, you have over here is three things which you have to keep in mind. And this is all regards to what? The different traits which you get when there is a genetic flow. So what are the three things which you can see over here is the stabilization, directional changes, and a disruption. Okay, so what is the stabilization? So stabilization means usually it's a, what do you say, stabilizing selection which happens over there, which means if there are, suppose say, more individuals, then they are going to acquire what? Mean character value over there. So the variations which you're going to get over here, maybe it will be what? Reduced. For example, if we take the body size of the organisms, it is all different, right? So this comes, the body size of the organism, you may take it as an example of what? Stabilizing selection. Okay. In the same way, the second one which you have is the directional changes. So directional changes means what? Whatever the individuals are there, they will acquire more value than the mean character value. Means one organism, it may be more favorable towards the another. Okay, so that's called as what? Directional changes which may take place. For example, if you see the peaks, okay, that is one is the narrower, okay, other one you can see the directions which is there. It's so this is called as what? The directional selection. Then you have the destructive selection. So destructive selection means both the things will be in extremes and both will may be favorable over there. So hence they are called as what? Destructive selection. Okay, so these are what? The three concepts which are related to the natural selection on the basis of different traits which you're going to get. So yeah, next one which is there is the, okay, a brief account of evolution. Okay, now this is completely related to how the eras which we have, different eras. Like if you take the dinosaur era, that is the Paleozoic era, then you have a Proterozoic era. So like that, many eras you are having, right? So here we are just going to see in brief about the how actually the geologically how the evolution has impacted over the different organisms. That is what we are going to see in this. Okay, so first of all, whenever you talk about the evolution, okay, there are four eras which you must consider. Okay, and what are those four eras? I'll just write it over here. So the first one which you have is the Proterozoic. Second is the Paleozoic. Third, Mesozoic. And the fourth one, which you have, is the Cenozoic. Okay. So these are what? The four types of eras. And all this are based upon the geological time scale. Okay, so let's say one by one, actually, what does this era mean? So first era which we have is the Proterozoic. So Proterozoic means only you can see it's nothing but the first cellular forms which appeared on the earth is usually called as the Proterozoic, because I told you, right, in the first only on the earth the single celled animals were formed, and then came the multinuclear organisms. So the same way Proterozoic era will lead towards the first cellular forms which appeared on the earth. And obviously the Big Bang theory, which I told you, that is the release of the oxygen, then comes the all the other things like photosynthesis and all those stuff. It all took place in this era. Okay, so here gradually what happened was the single cell organism became multicellular organism. So this is all about what the Proterozoic era. Then came the second one, which is the Paleozoic era. So Paleozoic era, in this actually there are six different periods which you have, and it all depends upon the years. How many number of years are there accordingly? Okay, so for I'll just write it. Hmm, just a second. Okay, fine. I'll just write it over here. So the first one which you have, as I told you, six periods. This Paleozoic era is been divided into. So the first one is the Cambrian. Okay, then you have the second one, Ordovician. Third is the Silurian. This is all depending upon the variations. Okay. Then you have the Devonian. Then the Carboniferous. And sixth one you have is the Permian. So you can see in this chart also it's given Jurassic, Triassic, Permian, and all those things, right? So this is nothing but in the first thing, if you see the Cambrian, also in the Cambrian, invertebrate animals which were there without the vertebra, they were formed. So hence they are called as what? The Cambrian era. Then comes the next one, which is the like you can take the after the 450 years, whatever the thing is there. After that, what happened was the first land organisms appeared on the earth. So first land organisms means they are considering also the plants over here. Then after the 400, it was the arthropods like cockroaches and all those stuff. And then came the fishes. Okay, so like this only one step from the single cellular organism to a multicellular or complex organism, it just developed. And lastly came what? Your amphibians, reptiles, whatever is there. So this concludes what? Your second era, which is the Paleozoic era. Then comes, now as I told you, lastly who came was the amphibians and reptiles. So now came the third era, which is the Mesozoic era. So it's nothing but related to the age of reptiles, whatever is there. So in the age of reptiles only, you have all this Jurassic or Terracic things which is there, right? Cretaceous, Triassic, and Jurassic. These are the three periods which you can see in a Mesozoic era, and this are called as what? The age of reptiles. Okay, so there were some reptiles which appeared to be fish-like, so they were into the water bodies. Some reptiles they used to live on land. So like that, different largest dinosaurs, smallest dinosaurs, some dinosaurs they could fly, right? So all these things came in this Mesozoic era. And then came the Cenozoic era. Okay, so Cenozoic era means nothing but the age of mammals, as well as if you take the plants, it is the angiosperm and mammals. So the mammals and angiosperms, right? So here, as you see, because of that asteroid formation, dinosaurs got extincted, they suddenly disappeared. And also there were certain climatic changes which took place. So you got the two periods in the Cenozoic period, which is called as the tertiary and quaternary. Okay, so which is related to the mammals or man related people. And in plants, if it's called as the angiosperm. So some of the things actually due to the climatic change, it just evolved into reptiles, different forms of reptiles even now which exist on the earth. And some are, what do you say, they have been evolutionized on the basis of what? From the dinosaurs to the birds as well. So these are the four eras which you can find. Okay, so it's like the transformation which you can take, which you can see, okay, or the origin and evolution of man, if you will see. Okay, so we were not like this before, right? So whatever the thing or the evolution which took place was due to various reasons. Okay, it is basically the continental drift or the competition, or you can take over here the climatic change. All this thing only what made the evolution or origin of the man which we are today, right? So in this you have different kinds. So the first one which you have over here is the Dryopithecus and Ramapithecus. Okay, so this were the primates which usually existed, and they have certain characteristics. So what are the characteristics? Like hairs were there. Okay, they were like almost how they used to walk is like the gorilla or the chimpanzee you can take, right? And out of this two, whichever this first one which is there, that is the Dryopithecus, this was mostly ape-like appearance, whereas the Ramapithecus was a man-like appearance, a little bit. Then came the man-like primates, which was there. Okay, after this stage. So that is like height and everything was different. Okay, then the bones also has changed over there a little bit. Then came the second one, the third one, which is called as what? The Australopithecus. So Australopithecus means what? It's like the East African grasslands. They lived over there. Okay, they invented certain stone weapons. They used to go for hunting, and they also consumed what? Fruits as the food. So in this, you have two things. Okay, one is the most common, that is the Homo habilis, and then you have the Homo erectus. So Homo habilis means what? The first ever human-like kind which is there is called as the Homo habilis. Okay, still, even though if they were human-like, they did not start to consume the meat. Then came the Homo erectus. So Homo erectus is next stage after the habilis. Okay, so here as compared to the first one, that is the Homo habilis, the brain was little more big. Okay, and they started eating meat. Then came the this one, the Neanderthal man. So these man which were there, okay, their brain capacity was much more as compared to the two others which are there. So they started putting dresses on their body. Okay, and when someone is to die, they used to bury them like they were dead. Like that, all those things came. And they used to eat meat not raw, but by cooking them. Okay, then came our species, which is the Homo sapiens. The Homo sapiens, which are there, that is, we say the Ice Age, right? So the modern man during the Ice Age, they just came, and it's just they started building or living in a cave, okay, and they started doing the agriculture, farm or farming, whatever is there, and then you can see how actually the human settled down, and now it is, as you can see, how it is existing now, right? So this is how actually the evolution of or origin of the man took place.